Broadcasting from the basement of La Penta, it's WICR.
Well, I'm not going to be able to say this too many more times, so it's going to be quite a lot of fun to say it here. But welcome back to the Sports Vault. Jersey, Joe Archino here with the one and only Big Shot Rob. Haven't had as many times to do a show, Big Shot Rob, this semester, but it's the final week, and I think we've got some nice things planned for it.
Oh, most definitely. 3 shows hopefully this week, and Thursday night, I think, will be our last night show. It's going to be great.
It is going to be great. And you know what's great, Rob? Whenever you get to talk about people winning things that truly matter. And right now, we're starting things off by talking about your favorite team, Leicester City. I'm just kidding. Not your favorite team. But, Rob, I don't think you need to be a soccer fan to kind of really talk about this and look at it. I mean, let's look at it from this standpoint. There were 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League title at the start of the season. By comparison, the Philadelphia 76ers were 400 to 1 odds to win the NBA title. Now, let's think about that one for a minute. I mean, think how big of a leap. I mean, we look at the NBA. The 76ers winning a title, it's unfathomable with that roster. Mm-hmm. But then you look at those odds, 5,000 to 1. And they won it. They did it. Rob, you're a numbers guy. You're in the finance world. You know numbers better than I do.
I mean, Joe, I don't get what this... I mean, was this the luck? Was this just pure luck, them winning? This has to be... This is like watching... Oh, man, I need a good sports team I could talk about right now. This is like watching in Space Jam, watching Looney Tunes go up against the Monstars.
It's like watching Rudy and Rudy, except he doesn't have his legs. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things that's just... How do you explain it? And, look, you always need luck. When you're 5,000 to 1 odds, you need a little bit of luck. But they really had this skill. And I think... You know, we are so used to seeing the power and prestige. I mean, let's look at the Lakers right now. The Lakers are a team that is built on a foundation of winning, but they've kind of escaped that. And I think that's kind of where Leicester City comes into play here. You have your traditional powerhouses of the Premier League like you would have in any sport, but Leicester City's kind of broken the model, and they've kind of shown that if that power and prestige don't mean anything if your players don't connect with one another. I think that's where they kind of set themselves apart, and they are so well connected. They're so built through togetherness, and I think they're really a model to look at for every team in professional sports, because if they could win it at 5,000 to 1 odds, I think that's a very telling statement, because we look across professional sports now, a lot of the top-tier franchises are in down periods. Let's look at the Yankees. We look at the Lakers. Teams that have traditionally been built on foundations that win aren't doing that right now, and I think that togetherness factor sometimes is not there.
No, it's not, especially, Joe, we're looking at the New York Yankees, and you look at their 2016 batting stats. Their leading RBIs is Alex Rodriguez with 12. That's a disgrace. When you look at the Mets, you have like 2 guys already with 20-plus RBIs. So we're looking at the Yankees as a team that it's an aging corp. The Los Angeles Lakers are just a team that's in complete rebuild. So when you look at a soccer team like this, one that goes against the odds and wins, it's quite amazing. Very amazing, and you see what togetherness can happen with a team over time. Sticking guys together, players together. Not with the Yankees and Lakers, how we're going to see probably the next 2 years of, oh gosh, I need a new team, especially me with the Yankees. I'm like, I watch them and I'm like, wow. I'm like, what are we paying to watch?
That is 150,000% the right way to look at it, because they're boring. You can't be the New York Yankees. You can't be the Los Angeles Lakers and be boring. You can't. You're charging exorbitant money. You're paying exorbitant wages to players. How can you put a product like that out on the field and expect anything different? And I think that's one of the things Leicester had, is they had excitement. You can't be boring. It just is. We have options. I'm going to go watch a movie. Someone else is going to go on Netflix. Someone's going to go out and hang out with their friends. Why would you sit and confine your time to a product that is boring when you have other options? And I think we're in an age now where if you're not exciting, people aren't going to watch, and I think that's why the Yankees' numbers are going down.
Oh, it most definitely is. I mean, Joe, talking about the Lakers, when Jack Nicholson is falling asleep at a game, that's how you know they're bad.
How big of a statement is that there?
It's like dealing with the New York Knicks when Spike Lee does not want to be in Madison Square Garden. That's how you know the Knicks are bad.
Rob, can I get something off my chest here now? You're a Knicks fan. You've been a loyal Knicks fan. Even in one of our classic liners for the Sports Vault, we had our nice little line where we went back and forth on the Heat and the Knicks. But I just don't know. How do you kind of stay true to that organization? I just don't see how you do when that's an organization that just truly, let's look at the NBA today. Tom Thibodeau chose the Minnesota Timberwolves over the Los Angeles Lakers in the Knicks. Now, we don't know if the Knicks kind of offered him anything, or even the Lakers, that fact, but just the fact that happened, that never would have happened 10 years ago, but it happened today. And I think that's really shows where these are. Rob, how do you keep your head on straight?
I honestly don't know. My uncle always says to me, he goes, Rob, there's always a reason why I stopped watching the Knicks in the 90s. The franchise just, we look at it. The players that have come and go, Zach Randolph, David Lee, Jamal Crawford, all who have had outstanding careers in the NBA that the Knicks have let go over the years. And I sit there and I go, I watch this team. I'm a miserable Jets fan as well, so I'm kind of used to losing.
The misery continues.
So, my reason for sticking with the team, I really can't give you a definite answer for that. I don't know. I guess you just fall for the team and you go, you just want to see them do good. You hope they do well, but I don't know. I just don't give up on them. That's the thing.
What camp are you in on Phil Jackson? He's obviously a guy who gets tremendous amount of blame, and I think a lot of it rightfully so, because he's not willing to stick to get someone who doesn't think the way that he does. But that's not the way. Progressive ideas are the way that wins in the NBA, and he's not willing to open up to those ideas.
Well, overall, Joe, I think he's a strong guy. I love that he stands for his belief. That's one thing I'll give to him hands on. He stands up for his beliefs. And he wants the New York Knicks to win. He wants to excel to that next level. He won those championships in the 70s. So he's trying to incorporate the triangle still to this day. He's out of his mind, though, when you have coaches. You have Jeff Van Gundy out there, who in the 80s had one of the greatest, in the 90s, my mistake, had one of the greatest defenses out there. So I kind of sit there and I'm like, should we fire Phil? Because, his philosophy isn't working whatsoever. He has to realize he doesn't have an enforcer. He doesn't have a Shaquille O'Neal. He doesn't have an extraordinary shooting guard. Carmelo Anthony's at the end of his career. So it comes to a point where, what can Phil do? And eventually it's going to be James Dolan's going to have to fire him. Now people will say, you're firing one of the greatest masterminds. But it comes to a point where you're missing out right now. You're missing out on Tom Thibodeau. You missed out on Luke Walton. You missed out on a couple guys. And you sit there and you go, why are you passing up on them? Stop trying to incorporate the triangle. Try something else. Maybe you can win games and improve.
And I think that's one of the things that makes it hard for people is you look at Phil Jackson's resume, and he's obviously the most winning coach that we've ever seen, and you can't write anything off about those accomplishments, but just because you're a great coach doesn't mean you're a great talent evaluator. It doesn't mean you're good at putting teams together. We look at Michael Jordan. No one disputes Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time, but Michael Jordan as a talent evaluator and as someone putting teams together wasn't good. It just, sometimes you don't wear both the hats. You wear both hats, though, Rob. You're a flawless sports broadcaster and accountant extraordinaire. All those things.
Thank you. When we look at Michael, though, I have to say, though, his early years as an owner were terrible. Charlotte, we saw what happened. Adam Morrison was one of their top picks dating back, and you go, wow. But now I feel he kind of has gotten some decent players together. And, Charlotte, obviously, they didn't win that series versus the Heat, but they gained
growth
respect.
Is there.
You
could see yes, you can definitely see the growth is there, and I really like this Charlotte. I picked them to beat the Heat in the series. I thought without Chris Bosh, the way they finished the season, they had a chance. But moving forward a little bit, Rob, it wouldn't be a sports fault unless we talked about LeBron James, one of our favorite people to talk about on the show, LeBron James. So, Rob, let me ask you. I've been on so much talking about saying why I think that LeBron in the Cavs are just so much far and alone above everyone else in the Eastern Conference that is not even comparable. And I think you look at the first round, 7 games for Miami and Charlotte, 7 games for Toronto and Indiana, 6 games for Atlanta and Boston. I think that right there tells you everything you need to know about why the Cavs are just so much better than everyone else. Now, am I a little bit biased here, Rob, or do I have a point?
I would say a little bit biased. The only reason why that series won 7 games with Miami, you have to take out the fact that Chris Bosh isn't in that series.
100%.
They signed Joe Johnson after his buyout with the Nets, and honestly, if Bosh is playing, I honestly see them going 7 games with the Cleveland Cavaliers, hands down.
Really?
Hands down.
Wow. I don't know about that. Wait, without Bosh or with Bosh?
With Bosh.
With Bosh,
7 games.
it gets very interesting. I will say this, though. I've never seen a LeBron team where LeBron has resorted back and let another player take the reins like he's done with Kyrie Irving. Even in the first game last night against Atlanta, LeBron much more trying to be the guy getting everyone involved. I mean, now we see him do that in stretches, but I've never seen him through a series, which he did in Detroit, let Kyrie Irving be the guy. What do you attribute that to? I kind of my contention has kind of been because he's older now, he kind of realizes he can't do as much physically. He's letting Kyrie take the brunt of it. But I don't know, maybe it's something deeper there.
I think he's just changing it right now, his philosophy a little bit, just to appease Kyrie. Because, Joe, remember earlier this year we did hear reports he did want out. So, I mean, maybe he's saying, oh, maybe I'm ready to pass the crown over to you. I'm coming towards the end of my career. I mean, LeBron, yes, he's still at a decent young age, but his body is somewhat of a decline. I will say that. But, I mean, maybe he is passing it. Kyrie, I trust you. Run Cleveland. This is your city now. But, I mean, this Cleveland Cavaliers team, the thing I dislike so much is when you look at the West and you look at the East, it's such an easier road for the East. I just feel the talent isn't up to par. The defense isn't what you see in the West. When you look at the Kevin Durant going up against San Antonio, LaMarcus Aldridge all of a sudden going off 41 points. You look at Golden State, who, I mean, yeah, they're playing Portland, but Portland's another team that had an amazing year this year. But, I mean, yeah, they came away with their series because Chris Paul broke his hand and Griffin did get injured. But Portland's another team, and it's kind of different when you look at the East. We have Toronto. Toronto's really not an established team. I don't like to put them there. I say Toronto's just a bunch of young players who somehow find their way. That's what they've done over the last couple of years. They're nothing special. They're just a regular ball team. And the Atlanta Hawks is just a team that's just on the decline. That needs to be broken up now.
All you need to do to look at how the stark differences between the East and the West is LeBron James had the easiest path of his career ever to the finals last year. And that was without Kevin Love, and that was without Kyrie Irving. They swept the Atlanta Hawks last season, who were the number 1 seed, without Kyrie and without Kevin Love. If that doesn't say right there the state of the Eastern Conference compared to the West, I don't know what else does. Now, the West is very top-heavy. They're not as strong at the bottom like they were last season, but still, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And we're coming to around the 13-minute mark. So, Rob, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a couple deep breaths. We'll meditate a little bit, and we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere.